On today's episode of the Path Monk Presents, I've got a very special guest with me joining today. Please welcome Andrew Kumar, who is the VP of Customer Solutions. So, for all of you who don't know, Uniform is a digital experience composition platform, which enables rapid integration of headless services and legacy tools through intuitive visual interface, accelerating web and app development while reducing the tech debt for developers. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you on our show.
Thanks for having me. Honor to be here.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So for all of our listeners out there, tell us, what does Uniform do? What are the products they have, and what are the problems that you solve for your clients overall?
Awesome. So I joined Uniform, and it's fantastic toolkit here. In my own words, so Uniform is it's a visual workspace, and it enables and empowers digital teams at our customers to really do their best work. So we talk a lot about how to quickly blend content, data, design, technology, and get that data and content from anywhere, right? In an enterprise, there can be multiple sources of product information or content or just random customer information. There's all these different sources. So really from anywhere, to bring it all together into this visual workspace and then deliver these multi-channel experiences. So we have this term, we call it a composition. You can build your composition. And we call it a composition because that composition could be a page on a website. It could be a screen in a mobile app. It could be a screen in like a physical kiosk at a retail location. It can be a screen just kind of up above one of those digital displays. And sometimes it's not even a screen. It can be like an Amazon. You can use a composition to build a voice skill for like an Amazon Alexa. So there's a lot of flexibility, and that's really the kind of the power. So you have this workspace for the digital team to be able to tackle all of those different experiences. Now, with that being said, a lot of it is websites and apps, but having the flexibility to reuse even within one to many websites or one large website, it does work quite well. It scales quite well.
That's incredible. Thanks for giving me an overview as for what you guys do and how you solve the issue for your clients. Now, speaking of clients, what industry do they mainly come from? What would you say is the focus area and the scale? Are these B2B, B2C? Do they come from healthcare, education, or are they from all types of industries?
Right. So we are primarily B2B. So our customers would take Uniform to then use it as part of their toolkit to build really great websites and apps and experiences. So we sell to other businesses. Now we've kind of classify them in a couple different areas. We talk about technology first companies or digital natives. So if you think about a lot of they're scale ups, they used to be startups. They've started online, they sell online, they interact online. All of the services are online. Those digital native companies, they have been disrupting the more established physical retail brands. So this group of technology and digital natives is a very strong industry for us. We're also seeing traction in luxury brands that are going D2C. So they're not, because of COVID, because of this kind of change in buying habits, their luxury brands will sell directly to a customer, and you can order like a really high-end watch online or order tickets to a really high-end show or some sort of entertainment online. You're not going through a broker. You're not going into a retail store or a distribution channel. Some people still are doing those things, but now because the brands have so much brand recognition, you can go direct to commerce. So we're seeing traction in luxury brands and D2C fashion. We're also starting to see, like we call it TMT, so telco, media, and technology. So organizations in that industry tend to be, they're in a highly competitive market, right? They're sometimes competing, they're partnering with Google and Amazon and Apple, but at the same time, they're competing because you're selling the same devices, the same services, the same accessories. So we're starting to see traction there as well. So when we think about some of the pain points, usually what happens, and again, I think this is part COVID, part just evolution of digital, the expectations from an end user, from you and I engaging with a brand, like we expect it to be fast, we expect it to be secure, we expect it to be pleasant. The moment there's pain or friction, we're like, well, there's a better website to go and do this. And so we bounce, right? So the the digital audience is incredibly fickle, right? And then it's like the equivalent of going into a store and you can't find someone to help you. Well, now that's translated online. So you have to have a really good, really fast, efficient web property. So that's one pain. And then there's a lot of competitive pressure from the brands that are doing it. And there's often shifts in market share. And while this is all happening, everyone's budgets are getting tighter. So it's kind of this perfect storm of competitive pressures. And then there's often launching things on time, getting things from idea to backlog and backlog to live fast, trying to minimize the amount of copy paste required across systems, trying to maintain a consistent experience. These are all the types of problems that we're solving with Uniform by enabling incredibly flexible ways to piece together a digital experience. And we call our tool Visual Canvas. And Visual Canvas, like I love that analogy because it's like your data and your content it's like paint. You pull it from whatever source you needs to, and then you throw it up on the canvas and you can rearrange things on the canvas, but you're painting a canvas for a customer to be able to engage with their brand. So when we look at these industries, the digital natives, the luxury brands, DTC fashion, telco, media, technology, they all have, like, their digital teams all have these same challenges, and it's a lot of fun to be working on the space. Ultimately, it helps us build a better web, so everybody wins. And I'm happy to be at such an innovative company like Uniform.
Amazing. I love especially what you guys are doing as well. And, the competition aspect of explaining is one of my favorite parts that you guys are currently doing. So, Andrew, for everyone listening in, what would you say is the main competitive advantage of your product? Yes.
So oftentimes someone will say, okay, I need to spin up an A/B test program. Like, okay, why? Like, well, we need to figure out how to improve conversion rate. And then I ask, well, like, every organization I've ever worked with, even when I'm a consulting, every organization has this collective wisdom of in-house expertise, of in-house subject matter experts that are very well versed in the customer and the problems and pains and opportunities to deal with the customer. So having that collective wisdom is quite important, because then you can build this backlog of no-brainers. And I used to work in telco. I always use the example: if someone has an iPhone and you know that about them, show them the iPhone accessories at the top. You don't have to hide everything else, but just reorder things on a page and watch the conversions start to lift, and they can lift double digits. If someone is looking for, if they're a travel company and they're looking to go check out polar bears or the Northern Lights and they're from Texas, shows them the testimonials from Texas. There's going to be a giant list of these micro optimizations that all incrementally add up to conversion. And then I always talk about languages too. If someone their preferred language is Chinese simplified or Chinese traditional or Spanish or Hindi or Punjabi or Tagalog or French or whatever, translate the pages, right? Identify those diasporas, start translating it. And it could be something like, there's a Gartner stat, 80% of visitors want to be engaged in their native tongue, but they don't always have that option. And with things like AI and ChatGPT, there's really no excuse to not translate those pages anymore. So it's almost like identify all of this backlog of no-brainers and micro optimizations, and don't bother with the A/B testing until you've exhausted your no-brainers, because you'll get immediate ROI on these conversions because you have no-brainers. Then once you've exhausted it, you can go start doing A/B testing. So that's kind of rule number one: is identify your no-brainers, apply personalization, then think about A/B testing. But by that point, your ROI will be like 40-50% higher. Your conversion will be that much higher. So then you'll have more time and resources to go figure out what you don't know. And then when we think about, this is actually the main value prop I think about Uniform, is Uniform allows you to create a lot of content and then iterate on that content or create variations of that content very, very fast. You can create a landing page in 7 to 14 minutes. Then you can create all the translated versions of those landing pages. And within 4 hours, you have all your micro optimizations in place. And then you can create different variations, different tests, right? And so now you're starting to think, I'm gonna have better content in market, content that's more relatable, contextual, anticipatory, and you need a tool to enable your team to do that very fast. If you can't do that fast, you'll never have the white space to tackle these initiatives. You'll never have the white space to go add Pathmark into the mix, because you're just too busy getting your day-to-day jobs done. So that's a huge value add, I think, of Uniform, is just enabling you to operate and build faster.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So now, in terms of your clients, how do they typically find you? What would you say is your top client acquisition channel? Are we talking digital marketing, inbound SEO / content, or is it a mix of a lot of things?
It is a mix of a lot of things. So our ideal persona or champion is usually some sort of digital leader, whether they come from engineering background or marketing background. Sometimes the digital leader comes from an education background or merchandising or commerce. So it's a pretty broad and loose term, but digital leader is how we're called, some sort of leader that has something to do with online. And sometimes it's search volume. So they've heard a trend to move from the old kind of old way of building websites where you have like a WordPress or you have some enterprise tool and it does everything and anything. And the moment you try to deviate, you can't, because you're locked into some sort of limitation of that system. So then they start searching for headless, they start searching for composable, they start searching these other terms, or they go to like a Gartner or Forrester and ask for advice, or they go to an agency and ask for an advice. So these are the types of motions where if they know what to look for, they can find us on Google, and there's some traffic that way. But most of the time, they're asking an expert in the field, and an expert in the field, an agency or a consultancy or Gartner Forrester is sending them our way. So really tapping into that collective wisdom of experts. So it is kind of an interesting way where we have, because we're also solving so many challenges across different roles on a digital team. It really comes down to those partnerships and referrals and relationships, and events are coming back online. So I've been traveling a little bit and going to events and telling folks at these events, oh, like this is what Uniform does, and you start to see the light bulbs go off. They're like, yeah, I could have used that like 2 years ago. Like, where you been? So
you're like, we've been here. We've just been waiting for you.
Yeah, we've been here. We've been online, but no, so we kind of it's a mix, right? But activating all of these channels, I feel like we have to, like, if someone needs to see us 7 times across all the channels, and then they're like, okay, let's take a look at this demo. So
yeah, that's incredible, especially what you guys are doing. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about you as a leader. So what does an average day look like for you? Who's your team? Who do you report to? What do you work on a daily basis?
So it ebbs and flows. Doing a little bit of team building and hiring and recruiting. My team is primarily responsible for solution engineering. So we are the technical part of sales. So we will join the account execs. We will spin up prototypes on behalf of prospects, customers, agencies. We'll help them with their evaluation process. Oftentimes we'll like spin up a FigJam board or a Miro, like a virtual whiteboard, and we'll start asking about their technology stack, where they currently sit, what are their major pain points and problems, and then what does their future tech stack, like what could it look like? And we paint that architecture of that future tech stack that solves all of their pain points. And then we walk them through, here's where you're starting, here's the future tech stack, it's composable, you go from one giant tool to a lot of smaller tools that each meet your needs a little bit better. And then how do we bring it all back together? So it's like, I describe it as putting a puzzle together. Like we have a bunch of problems. We have a bunch of pieces. We need to assemble those pieces to solve the problem. So we're solving a puzzle. And then after we solve that puzzle, we can build a quick prototype and show you, hey, this is what it could look like. Now, our default demos, our default prototypes we call it a component starter kit, uses our look and feel and our colors, or sometimes it's all gray. But it's enough to kind of get that idea across that, hey, if you hire an agency, they can then take this and apply your brand, your look, your colors, your feel to get this into the right spot. So sometimes I'm just working with the team and doing reviews and collaborating. Sometimes I'm working with the engineering leaders at the customers directly and prospects directly to help piece this together on a FigJam. Sometimes I'm just someone saying, how do I staff my team to pull this off? So I'm answering those questions. Sometimes I'm doing that internally. I'm like, hey, here's a list of jobs to be done that our customers are dealing with. So how do you go from building a landing page or campaign page in your old stack to uniform? And okay, well, it might take 4 hours at best, 4 weeks at worst, depending on how much developer involvement is required. Okay, well, let me show you how to do this in uniform in 7 to 13 minutes. And then they, so it's very mixed. I do like to be customer facing as much as possible. But given I'm in a VP role, I'm now spending more and more time enabling others on my team so that they can go and accomplish these activities. So there's a bit of team building that does take up a lot of time. And it's a lot of fun to kind of enable and empower that. And then on the flip side, like I report to a head of sales. So that's my direct relationship, but then I also have a dotted relationship to our president who handles marketing and a bunch of other things. And then we have some really, our founders are incredibly strong subject matter experts. So sometimes I will ask them to come be a solution engineer and go run a customer or prospect conversation. So it's just a lot of hats, and I think that's the nature of a startup too.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, being agile and how to adapt when necessary, depending on like the goals you have to complete for the week, for the month, for the quarter, and so on. But I think it's great where your strengths as a leader and what you enjoy doing in the company as well. As you were saying, helping with enabling your team to be more successful in their roles. And I think that's great overall.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's a and then I'm slowly delving my way into some sort of evangelism work, thought leadership work, and then also demos, accelerators. So there's a lot to do. There's always a lot.
Yeah, definitely, but it's great. It's really awesome what you guys are doing as well in the market. You guys are really strong players in your niche, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Now, what is the last thing that you would want for our audience to remember about Uniform overall? You've already elaborated, the benefits of the tool, but is there anything in particular that you also wanted to take away from from this interview today?
So there's a bunch of resources that I think are quite valuable. We operate one called Headless Creator, has a huge library of tactical lessons. Paying more attention to the PathMonk podcast is usually a good idea. And really just kind of thinking about the need for speed. And that's ultimately, like, if you can set up your stack and set up your collaboration between designers, developers, content operators, marketers, merchandisers to really be focused on speed, then the other benefits start to accrue quite quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for shouting us out as a resource as well. It's always great. But again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It was our pleasure. And for all of our listeners out there, check us out next week on PathMonk Presents.